Hey guys, welcome to the channel. Now today I'm checking out the Division 2's new expansion, the Warlords of New York. Now, I'm glad they didn't go back to the same section of New York that the original game took place in. We're in New York again, I'm happy about, but we're in a whole new area of New York. Now, this area of New York had been battered by a storm before this DLC takes place, and you can definitely see evidence of this everywhere. Trash all piled up in certain areas as if it had been swept there by waves. People struggling to try and rebuild what they had already rebuilt. Parks which are absolutely filled with soil. As you can see from the footage behind you, unless this is intentionally done or man-made, this genuinely looks like a storm has swept all the soil and muck and gunk and just absolutely buried this area. Because you can still see cars laying on its side, trash absolutely everywhere. Windows in most of the buildings are all smashed out. Even buildings with the quarantine signs on them all have visible damage on them, definitely from storms. So yeah, New York yet again has landed on hard times. Now with this expansion there has been several changes. The gear score and your levels and stuff have all changed. The level cap has been risen from 30 to 40, and there has been changes to how the weapons actually work. No longer are you gear score 500. To that effect, you've went back to leveling up and basically equipping the strongest weapon you can get. Although this time round, I've noticed different changes. I don't fully understand all the changes, so I'm not going to go too in depth in them in this video. Once I do, I will make a dedicated video on that exact subject if that interests you. Now, as for the plot, you're after Aaron Keener. Now, if you've played the Coney Island addition to the base game, then you'll know him already. If you don't, he is a rogue agent who has managed to develop a new virus and is trying to cull the herd again and releasing it on places in New York. And obviously, judging by the trailer for the game, you've seen that he's already been using it, and it's quite deadly, quite fast. Now, I won't go into too much detail after that, because then there's not really much point in you playing it. Unless you, for example, want a Let's Play or something like that, then by all means, go and look up a Let's Play. Now, the map's set up basically like it is in DC, with obviously the difference being you're in New York. You see your settlements, you see patrols, resource convoys, current objectives, so on and so forth. Now, the footage in the background is of, I had only finished the first little section of it, but obviously doing this review I'm much farther. The recording on Xbox was being very strange and didn't record any of the audio, and the frames just dropped in the recording. I don't get it at all and didn't feel comfortable using that footage. So there's still collectibles to collect. There are still the usual phones to pick up and play your audio logs and stuff from different people, filling out the backstory a little bit for you. The expansion's map being smaller in the base game, I thought would be a bit... Yes, it's going to be typical of an expansion for a game that's not necessarily going to be the same size as the base game, but I thought that you would spend a lot of time traveling here and there and not really seeing anything, but I have found to have quite the opposite. Yes, sure, when you go down certain back alleys and stuff like that, sometimes you do have moments of quiet, but generally when you're staying on the main roads, you come across far more enemies and lootable objects and so on and so forth than you do in the base game. Now, that's just my experience so far. There may be people that would argue against that. But the way I see it right now is there's far more to the expansion in terms of free roam than I've experienced in the base game so far. Is it worth your money? That's probably gonna be the biggest question that people think whenever they look at the price. It's not an incredibly expensive expansion, but for the size of it, you know, obviously people have looked it up online. Obviously you've looked up some stuff if you're watching this video yourself. Is the size of the map and the change of the gear score and all this stuff something that you're wanting to throw your money at? Is that worth it for you? Is it gonna be a put off? I don't know. I can't honestly answer that for you. It depends on what you're looking for from the expansion as compared to what other people would generally look for from the expansion. So far, being balls deep in this thing, I've loved the expansion so far. The extra levels to grind up for me wasn't a put off. It was more like, give me a goal. Give me something fresh to go for instead of just trying to find the very best loot and the very best gear. Because although that is fun, and although that is part of the Division's play loop, it can get a bit annoying sometimes, especially if you're a solo player. Now, if you're a player in a team of friends, then you have far less to worry about, in my opinion. You can tackle the harder missions and the harder objectives much more readily than you can as a solo player. But that's not to say you can't play through it and enjoy the story and take the benefit of the DLC as a solo player. I'm just, the end game content, raids and stuff like that would be far better with a group of friends. As always, it's the same in any kind of game like this. Now, there will be more videos on the Division 2 on BG4G, and BG4G Respawn will have some gameplay. Unsure if I'm going to do the entire DLC as a playthrough series. It depends how the DVR is working, it depends how the streams actually work, because recently I've had some issues with, like I said, the DVR, and sometimes Mixer works, sometimes it doesn't, sometimes it flipping stops streaming and doesn't tell you, and you don't notice the stream bar disappearing, as I'm sure plenty of people have been caught out with that. So if you're interested in more content for the Division 2, stay tuned to BG4G Hub and BG4G Respawn, and I'll see you in the next video.